Hi, I'm Kim Vanell in Whanganui, New Zealand. It's Wednesday, February 18th. Today, as many as 10 skiers are missing in California's Sierra Nevada mountains as fears grow of one of the deadliest avalanches in US history. New details emerge of an alleged Chinese nuclear test, whereas there are signs of progress in high-stakes negotiations between the US and Iran. And Zuckerberg takes the stand in a trial alleging social media harms to children. This is Reuters World News, bringing you everything you need to know from the front lines in 10 minutes, 7 days a week. We begin near Lake Tahoe in California and the aftermath of a huge avalanche in the Sierra Nevada mountains. As many as 10 skiers are missing, and at least 6 others were stranded as heavy snow and whiteout conditions hampered rescuers trying to reach them overnight. Authorities fear if they don't find the missing, this could be one of the deadliest avalanches in US history. The avalanche swept the Castle Peak area of Truckee at about 11:30 in the morning, engulfing the group, which included 4 ski guides. The known survivors are awaiting rescue at the time of recording this podcast. Authorities are warning there could be further avalanches into this morning. For the latest on this story as it is developing, check out Reuters.com or the Reuters app. European Central Bank President Christine Lagarde plans to leave her job before next year's French presidential election to allow President Emmanuel Macron to have input into picking her successor. That's according to the FT. Here's Mike Dolan from our sister podcast Morning Bid on what it means.
Even though these stories have circulated for over 6 months now, the ECB says that no decision has been made, inevitably will focus the markets on who comes next at the ECB. And it's all changed the top 2 central banks this year, if that were to be the case. Who comes next? Possibly a German candidate for the first time, possibly another compromise candidate. How it affects monetary policy is very much in the frame. So markets relatively calm about the story, but it begins a process that they will focus on for months ahead.
Thanks, Mike. Don't forget you can check out Morning Bid wherever you get your podcasts. American tourists are no longer traveling to Europe as much as they used to, but Chinese and Indian tourists are filling the gap. A new survey from the European Travel Commission shows US traveller growth slowing in the EU, driven by economic concerns and geopolitical instability. It's the first sign of a slowdown in the post-pandemic boom in American travel to Europe. Chinese and Indian tourists, however, are making up the difference. Chinese tourists are expected to jump 28%, with Indian visitors up 9%. Actor Shia LaBeouf has been arrested in New Orleans after police say he assaulted 2 men during Mardi Gras. Officers were called to a business address just before 1 a.m. where the 39-year-old Transformers star was allegedly causing a disturbance and growing increasingly aggressive. Police say he punched a staff member multiple times, left, then returned and attacked the same man again before punching another person in the nose. LaBeouf was charged with 2 counts of simple battery, the latest in a string of legal troubles for the actor, who previously pleaded guilty to obstruction. A senior US official has revealed new details of what he claims was an underground nuclear test blast conducted by China. Assistant Secretary of State Christopher Yao says a remote seismic station in Kazakhstan recorded the blast in western China back in 2020. Yao, a former intelligence analyst and defense official who holds a doctorate in nuclear engineering, says the blast could not have been an earthquake. A spokesperson for the Chinese embassy in Washington called the allegation entirely unfounded. Beijing accused the US of trying to fabricate excuses for resuming US nuclear testing. US President Donald Trump is pressing China to join negotiations to replace a nuclear arms limitation agreement, which expired on February 5th. The treaty's expiration has fueled concerns that the world is on the verge of an accelerated nuclear arms race. Meanwhile, the US and Iran are continuing to flex their military might, even as they say some progress has been made in talks to try and reach a nuclear deal. The two sides are going into day 2 of indirect talks in Geneva. And as Don Durfee explains, day 1 has shown there's a long way to go.
Iran's foreign minister said that they had reached an understanding on, quote, guiding principles. Vice President J.D. Vance, who was not in the talks but briefed on them, came out and said that in some ways talks had gone well and pointed out that both sides had agreed to meet again.
The main sign of progress, Don says, is the fact that the talks didn't melt down completely. That could be because of the threats both sides are making.
I think the threats are quite serious. I mean, the U.S. has put in place a really significant military force in the region. You've got an aircraft carrier there, destroyers, air defense systems, many military aircraft are continuing to flow to the region. On the Iranian side, they closed part of the Strait of Hormuz today, which was, a clear signal that this is something that they could do if a bigger conflict breaks out. I think that from the sources that we talk to, the military on the U.S. side is pretty much ready to go if Trump were to order an attack.
The two envoys representing the US in the Iran talks then did something that has left many foreign policy analysts scratching their heads. They headed across town to another set of talks, this time to try and end the war in Ukraine.
It's pretty remarkable. So you have Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff. These are the two lead negotiators for the United States on the two most important diplomatic crises that the U.S. faces, negotiating these things at literally the same time. And so basically in the morning, they talked about Iran. And then I think they got in their cars, traveled across town to start their discussions about Ukraine. And it's raised, a lot of questions from experts about just how is it possible to effectively negotiate these two very complex issues at the same time. It remains to be seen whether any progress is going to be made here.
Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg takes the stand today in a trial testing whether big tech platforms can be held liable for addictive features in their app design. The case, brought by a 20-year-old woman, alleges the companies behind Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube deliberately designed products they knew would become addictive to children. All have denied the allegations. Our reporter Jody Godoy covers tech policy and will be in the courtroom.
While this is the first time that Zuckerberg is going to testify in court about these issues, we actually have a view into what he's going to say because he's testified before in Congress about how social media affects children and affects teen users. And what he said there is that the science doesn't necessarily back up harms to teens on social media. And he's also pointed to tools that the company has put in place, they say, help teens have a safer experience online. What's different here, though, is that Meta can be held liable by this court if they decide that the company's products harmed this woman when she was a child, and the jury can award damages.
Social media platforms globally are facing pressure to limit access for teen users. But, Jody says, not only is Meta responding with new safety tools, it's also on somewhat of a PR blitz.
Meta has done advertising, they've spun up programs with PTA groups, and then, of course, lobbying in Congress and in states to try to push back on upcoming laws.
Now, if you're keen to go deeper on this, take a listen to our On Assignment episode all about the world-first social media ban for teens that's now a few months in Australia. I spoke to the journalists covering it from all angles and heard from parents and, of course, from the teens themselves. There's a link to that in the show notes. Before we go, a quick correction. In yesterday's podcast, we said Barack Obama was elected in 2018 rather than 2008. Sorry about that. And for today's recommended read, how Canadian troops are training in the Arctic as tensions rise over the region. Follow the link in the pod description to see members of Canada's military enduring temperatures below minus 22 degrees Fahrenheit for the exercises. And for more on any of the stories from today, check out Reuters.com or the Reuters app. Don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast player. If you're listening on a smart speaker, just ask for the latest news from Reuters 7 days a week. We'll be back tomorrow with our daily headline show.